We tend to lament over our favorite expressions when they've run their course and are replaced by a new edition. We always think the original is the best and we have nostalgia for it, right? And how can this new version be better than the original? And today's bottle, Glen Scotia Victoriana, is a prime example. Batch 1 has been discontinued, but thanks to my whiskey buddies, Phil and Deepa from Whiskey Mystery, I have a sample of Batch 2, the latest version of Victoriana. And today, I'm going to do a blind test on Batch 1 versus Batch 2. Let's talk about whiskey from the whiskiest place in the world. Located in the Kintyre Peninsula in Campbeltown, once known as the whiskey capital of the world, because at one time it had more than 30 distilleries. Today, there are only 3, which is the minimum required to have a region named after it by the SWA, Scotch Whisky Association. But what they lack in quantity, they make up for in quality. And those 3 distilleries are Glen Scotia, as we'll talk about today. The other 2 would be Springbank, which also has brands of Longrow and Hazelburn, and then Glengyle, which bottles their expressions under the name of Kilkerran. These distilleries produce exceptional, sought after, and lovely expressions. Glen Scotia has to be the Gloria Gaynor disco queen of Campbelltown, declaring, "I will survive." Since 1832, this distillery has gone up and down and back and forth with various owners in repair, disrepair. It's amazing that it has gone through all the iterations to come out to produce the whiskey that it does today. And in 1999, it got a good shot in the arm and a lot more investment. And it's brought Glen Scotia into this glorious state that it is right now. And yet it still is able, with all of that new investment, been able to retain the mash tun, the still house, and the dunnage warehouse. Most of Glen Scotia's expressions are non-peated. They will do a run of peated whiskey for about 6 weeks each year. They produce on average about 800,000 liters each year, which is on line with their neighbors, Springbank and Glengyle. Victoriana was introduced as an expression in 2015. It's a non-age statement, and it features maturation in highly, deeply recharred barrels as a throwback to the way whiskey was made in the Victorian age. This version of Victoriana is the original Batch 1 at 51.5 ABV. The newest edition, Batch 2, comes in at 54.2. So it'll be interesting to see the difference in the ABV. You can read my original review on Batch 1 on my blog, scotchonthebayou.com. Have you had either batches 1 or 2 of Victoriana? Let me know in the comments below what you thought about them, or if you've had any Glen Scotia at all. And take a moment to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit notifications so you'll be notified when new content comes out on this channel. So though they're 2 different batches, these items are the same in that they were both non-chill filtered, no color added, and there's no age statement, again, NAS, and they're about $80 to $100 a bottle. I'll cut to the chase. I absolutely adore Batch 1. I love it, so much so that I have ensured that I have a couple of backup bottles since it is hard to find nowadays. And because of that, I have a pretty good idea about the way it tastes. So in fairness to Batch 2, I had my husband pour me blind samples. So we're gonna give these, we've got a yellow and a red, and we're gonna see which is which. See if I can tell the difference, which I prefer. Odds are I'm probably gonna like both of them. Let's see. So looking at the color, there's definitely a difference. The yellow sample is more yellow, and the red sample is got more of an orange ambery tinge to it. Both are quite oily and viscous looking, hanging on the glass really well. Let's go for the nose. The yellow sample is very fragrant with caramels and malty. Yeah, the malt's definitely there, but some sweetness going on, more like a candy pecan kind of thing going. Interesting. The red, it's much lighter on the nose, and not as bright, more like stewed fruit, or not as much. This had more like burnt sugar to it, and this is much more mellow smelling. Here's the taste for sample yellow. Wonderful taste. It feels pretty hot. Hotter than I remember the other, but I purposely haven't had this in probably a month because I wanted this to be as fair as it could be. More of the caramel kind of burnt sugar on yellow. There's a little honey and vanilla there. Interesting. It's very tasty. Okay, let's do a taste on red. It's a much more mellow flavor, but it's got more heat on spice on the end. This is very interesting. You do get the char out of the yellow. More on the finish. Dry, still spicy, more of a like a cinnamon ginger thing, but with the underlying sweetness is still there. So yellow is pretty hot. It is bright, it's clean, pretty crisp. It's definitely got a lot of warmth going on. I mean, even my lips were tingling a little bit. Yeah, it's definitely much more mellow than the yellow. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to take a quick break to reset everything because 250 plus ABVs are kind of wreaking havoc on the old palate here. Hang on. So back to the red. I'm definitely getting more of the stewed fruit, kind of fig, prunish kind of thing going on. And it's ABV wise, I'm gonna guess this is batch 1 because it's much more approachable. The finish is hanging on, kind of get bits of almost like a chocolate kind of thing. And again, you got a little bit of praline candy, pecan kind of taste. It's a little dry. You get some char on this, but I actually got more char on the other one, on the yellow. Finish is much sweeter on the red than the yellow. So let's add some water to this because this ABV is a bit much. So this is red, so I'm gonna add a couple drops in there to that one. Okay, and let's add some water into yellow. Ooh, a lot more malt on the yellow with the water. It's still pretty potent. Yellow is much brighter, crisper, more, it's almost more bourbon forward for me than red. Red, yeah, with the water, you still get a good bit of sweetness from the stewed fruits. Yellow is not as sweet as the red. Yellow has more char than the red. Yellow, I believe, is definitely higher ABV. Whew, yeah. My palate's about shot right now, guys. Here's where we're gonna go. I'm gonna say yellow is the batch 2, and I'm gonna say red is batch 1. So let's do a reveal, and I'm not gonna look at them. There's no way this is gonna show up on here, but Mark put the numbers on here. So I'm gonna go, yellow is batch 2, and red is the original batch 1. Interesting. They are pretty different from my palate, from batch 1 to batch 2, or batch 1 to batch 2. When you come to the idea of one being better than the other, that doesn't really hold a lot of water, in the sense that everyone's palate is different. However, if you have the first batch or the first iteration of something, you have in your mind what it should be the second time it comes around. And when it's different, I think that's the point where people think, well, no, it's not as good as the original. It's just different than the original. And you may prefer it. There may be times you prefer the second iteration than the first. Between the two, I really like both of them. I think yellow could probably, the second batch could really hold some more water and pull it back down a little bit. The ABV on batch 2 is significantly different and more than batch 1. So much so that I could pretty much tell that right off the bat. Flavor profile is also a little different, where this yellow batch 2 was more bourbon forward with some more pronounced char, where batch 1 had a slight bit of char but had more pronounced sweetness, like the figs and the stewed fruit to it, and even some chocolate notes. Both of them are pretty damn tasty. So tell me in the comments if you've had either one of these expressions, batch 1, batch 2 of Victoriana, and if you've had any of Glen Scotia at all. My whiskey buddy Mark JG is a big fan of the Glen Scotia 15, and that is a very good dram. If you haven't tried any of Glen Scotia, give it a shot. I've not found a bad one, I gotta tell you that. Of these two, of the batch 2 and the batch 1, my palate preference is the batch 1. I like that it's more approachable with the ABV. I like the fact that it has more of the stewed fruits, but I'm not gonna turn down batch 2, no way. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe and the notifications so you are informed when I put out new videos on bottles or life in Louisiana. And until next time, sláinte y'all.